Hello, welcome to the Impersonal Opinion podcast, the podcast where we don't take our opinions personally. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about politics with Trump and the election system and what's wrong with it and voting and all of that interesting stuff. We also have a new guest with us named Poffo, I believe he said that is. And we have Logan Meyer, who has joined us on a previous podcast, I believe, of the Free Will Science Religion podcast. But today, since we're talking politics, it's just our impersonal opinions, whatever we have to say about it. So who would like to start?
Yeah, I have very strong feelings when it comes to our government right now and the whole political system. I don't support either party. I don't vote. Intentionally, I try to avoid politics because I just feel like it's a distraction. It's a complete waste of energy and time. I don't believe in the system. I really support the Venus Project, the Zeitgeist movement. Like this idea of restructuring our system, getting rid of the monetary system, and then this whole facade of the two-party system. I mean, I feel like Trump is just an idiot, and he's just there basically to get people to basically get people to vote for Hillary because she's like the lesser of two evils. I don't think he was ever meant to win. Just like Bernie, I supported everything that Bernie was about, but he was never meant to win. I feel like that was just kind of a litmus test to see where our culture was at and how far along, how much we've actually advanced in our consciousness. And so it's always going to come down to people that we don't actually elect. I think they just buy their way in, and the whole system's corrupt. So I'm pretty nihilistic when it comes to politics.
Okay, let me start with his immigration thing, where he says he's going to bomb ISIS and his family. Yeah, he's going to bomb this.
You say he's going to bomb?
Wait a minute.
He's going to bomb ISIS family?
No, I'm going to ask you something. You going to censor me? You may have to censor me on this. Just give you a fair warning.
No. We're not about censorship. Go on, go.
Okay. He said he's going to bomb the shit out of them. He would bomb the shit out of them.
You mean their families?
Yes.
In an act of revenge.
I mean, it's not like
that's what I'm saying.
It's not like there's a location. There's a physical location for this terrorist extremist group. They don't have a specific locale to bomb. I mean, that's just appealing to basically your right-wing conservative Texas. He's just conservative Christians and people who just think in those simplistic terms. I mean, it's like Team America, like we're watching Team America, America, fuck yeah,
Yeah.
Like he's a caricature. He's a cartoon. He's just like he is the culmination of all the collective ambition, egocentric, self-centered, self-righteous, conservative right-wing ignorance that exists. And so he just completely caters to that. This is a strange thing. I have never seen a presidential campaign and these rallies where there was so much violence and literal fist fights and people getting hauled off and to the ambulance and it's insane, man. Like this is civilized America. It's like he's bringing out the worst in people, basically. You there? Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It's just it's a joke. Sorry.
Yeah, it's like Jack Fresco said in the Venus Project. To solve the world's problems, you have to use education and sociology, not violence. Yeah.
All right, guys, let me ask a question. We all agree that the system is hugely corrupt. Okay, both parties, whatever. What's the answer?
Well, Jamie said education.
Yeah.
Education. Big time.
I think the answer is, raising awareness, first of all, that they're lying to you, that everything that you see on the media is all spin, that you're not going to find anything truthful, that nothing that comes out of a politician's mouth is ever going to be truthful because they're all working for the same people. The people who are controlling, running the government we'll never see. I mean, there's always going to be an element that's behind the scenes actually calling the shots. And everything about politics is just to cater to and basically keep people complacent and think that they have. It's just like the Matrix, thinking that you have the illusion of control, the illusion of choice. That's literally all it is. I can't believe that people still believe what they see in the media. It's a fiasco. It's insane. I can't stand Hillary. I can't stand Trump. I don't support any of them. I don't support it at all. I mean, you have the Venus Project logo here. What's your name with the icon? Yeah, obviously you're familiar with TZM and Venus Project and stuff, and we should not be supporting this government at all. I don't believe we should support military. I don't believe we should support the government. All that's doing is perpetuating this cycle of abuse and oppression that goes on, and this facade of that everything's okay, and it's absolutely not. Well, I'm all for restructuring it, just starting over.
Yeah, well, let me ask you something. If there wasn't money in politics, because right now, both parties, rely on billionaires and major corporations, rich people for the contributions. If there wasn't money in politics, do you think our government would still be corrupt?
Okay, I mean, corruption. I'm not sure who you're asking, so I mean.
Well, and the whole group, whoever.
I don't think it would be nearly as corrupt if money was not in politics. But this is what we got.
Corruption. I mean, human corruption is always going to be there to a certain extent because it comes from selfishness. It comes from the reptile brain. I mean, that there's always going to be corruption, but this system completely monopolizes, and fuels everything that's wrong with humanity. Our primitive nature, is based on survival and competition, and fighting for resources and stuff. And so everything about the way things are set up with the monetary system, that there's no incentive to be ethical when you have a monetary system. The incentive is to make money to survive, and as long as people are pressured into the type of structure where they have to just do whatever they have to do to survive, then you're not going to get the most efficient products. You're not going to get honest politicians. None of that. So I appreciate and absolutely agree with the Great Experiment and the idea of a constitutional republic, whatever you call a government now. It's not what it started out as. Go ahead. What?
And a resource-based economy where we have like a moneyless system, and what we get is based on what actually exists and the abundance of it.
Right. Access to the resources. It's not about paying a middleman, having to work and slave, doing a job that you hate, wasting your life for a medium to use to buy what already exists and what should be free to everyone. I mean, you could have fruit trees lined up and down the street and feed homeless people, but there's so many. I mean, there's cures for cancer. There's so much. It just makes no sense. I mean, it has to do with laziness. It has to do with living up to other people, because people don't want to grow their own food. They don't have the skills to be sustainable, so they leave it up to others, utility companies and governments to for the convenience of it. So that's part of it too, is we have to become much more self-reliant.
Yep.
Yeah, but if you have automation, then some things can be done by robots.
Yeah, and what I have to say about that is part of the problem we have in our system is that you have to be rich in this world. You have to be rich, and you have to own land to even have a garden, let alone a farm to grow food, which is a real problem I face, because I can tell you guys that's one of my dreams, was to get rich enough to buy an acre or two of land and grow enough food and vegetables to at least feed myself and maybe some other people. But
in the Venus Project
it's
society,
insane though. It's so insane that you have to go from your ass to your elbow to have access to what nature already provides. There's no other species on this planet that has to pay to eat. I mean, we work, and it's different to work for something, to put in effort. We all have to work, and we all have to exert the effort, but that's not the same as having to do a meaningless, to become a clog in the wheel to a greater system that you don't even approve of or agree with. It just makes no sense. It's insanity.
Exactly.
I mean, go ahead. I'm sorry. I was just going to say I'm involved, with the Zeitgeist movement here. friends with Brandon, who's the LA chapter leader, and it's really difficult. People are just, there's not that like awareness, and because their luxuries are provided for, because they have their basic necessities met, and then they're constantly distracted with technology and with entertainment and sports and all these different things. No one's rethinking the system itself, and then you have war on drugs, and you have war on poverty, and war on everything, instead of recognizing what's creating it. It's scarcity. It's the idea of scarcity, and creates this huge disparity between the rich and the poor, and that's intentional. It's all intentional. There's never going to be, equality and across the board, because
capitalism there. Yeah. Nope, it isn't.
Right. Capitalism is the enemy.
People look at me sideways every time I preach them this, but
a capitalistic society will never be a moral society, and it's predicated on all the wrong things.
That's why I'm a socialist.
Yeah.
For the Venus Project, poverty will be a thing of the past, right? Because people will be fed, people will be housed, and like I said, everything will be based on what exists, the abundance of it. I mean, you'll get your stuff.
Give people what they just meet their basic needs, and it will free people up to use their creativity to become more. To be inspired, to focus on poetry and philosophy and the things that actually advance our culture, art and creativity and all these things, instead of just being a robot and a slave to the system. And it's so easy. Like you said, automate everything, actually relocate people to habitats that are more conducive to support life. Why do millions of people live in desert areas that are so difficult to support life, even for animals and stuff like that? It's not that the earth is overpopulated. It's that people are condensed and packed and crammed into all these cities, these structures that we've created. There's just so much we can do, but we don't have a global system that's focused on the ideals, the higher human ideals of ethics and altruism. And, we have systems that can be used for good or for evil, but we don't have, a global sort of, it's not a government, but it should be a kind of global mentality. I would call it biocentrism. A biocentric attitude says that life comes first. It's life-centered. Life is the most important thing, not egocentric, not anthropocentric, but biocentric, because that's the commonality. That's the tie that binds us all, is our biology. So it's just all backwards. I mean, it just needs to be, we're moving forward. We're making progress, and like I said,
but not fast enough.
But
not
anymore. Yeah, because
we need
the
money
resources.
to run a society. We don't need.
Go ahead.
We don't need monetary system to run a society. Some people are just too accustomed to, this economy that we're using. Free market.
Everybody's accustomed to it. Yeah, everybody thinks they've just bought into the lies that the competition is good. How is competition ever a good thing? I mean, the natural world already operates, based on competition and survival, and everything is, it's very, very difficult. Everything is kill or be killed, and it's all about getting your next meal, all about reproducing, passing on, the positive beneficial traits to the next generation. So we as human beings, we should not make the naturalistic fallacy and go backwards and say, yeah, let's go back to competition. We need to think about cooperation and actually how many species in the animal kingdom actually work together. There's so many that exhibit altruism and stuff like that. But we're above that. We're beyond that. Go ahead. Sorry.
Ants work together. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Lions, wolves.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
Well, they. I mean, what you see is the competitive. They're fighting for resources. They're fighting for mating rights. They have that primitive behavior. But if you take animals out of that environment, I was just talking about this yesterday. I actually talk about this all the time. You see it all the time on YouTube videos. You can raise, vicious wild animals together, and from when they're small babies, and they get along, and they perfectly, when they're not fighting for resources, when they don't have to compete, and their needs are met, exactly what Zeitgeist Movement, the Venus Project wants to do. Once their needs are met, they become more compassionate, more altruistic, they more cooperative. They love and accept each other because there's no need to kill. There's no need to hunt and
Yeah, it's
survive.
like raising cats and dogs with each other.
Yeah,
Yeah,
look at the zoos,
dogs
like-
especially.
Yeah, if you look at zoos, you know, it's that the cats, if they're being fed and all that, they're not as vicious. They're not as predatory as, you know, you have to go in Africa and see a lion there.
The instincts are still there, but
Oh, it's still
these
there.
are all
I wouldn't
things that
climb
can
that
be.
cage, but yeah.
Yeah,
You
look
didn't
at dogs.
but
We've
it's a
taken the wolf and
Fuck that,
you've taken a wolf
yeah.
and made it into a Chihuahua. You know, you have a Pomeranian. Well, that was once a wolf. You know, that's selective breeding, selective evolution.
Evolution, yeah.
basically. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah,
it can be done.
absolutely.
I mean, I don't know if I'm talking about moralizing the animal kingdom, but I'm talking about like
Cooperation.
Richard Dawkins talks about you know, the real intelligent design is how we intelligently design our culture. Our society should be intelligently designed, and it's not.
Yeah,
If
I
it's
agree.
Needs.
Yeah, the case you mentioned there about animals, when they are no longer having to compete because they're with a family who feeds them, they don't need to compete for resources. What you have is they're a case of nurture over nature, where they no longer are in that natural method of having to compete for resources, having to kill or be killed. And so if it works with those other animals, we know that theoretically, if we could build such a system for humans as well, they would quit fighting. They'd have nothing to fight for.
It's like I was
Absolutely.
saying to my friend a while back. I was saying to him that lions that are raised as pets by some people, but some people own big cats as pets, right? They've been raising them since they were cubs and whatnot. And the reason why they don't attack their owners is because they're not in an environment where they need to kill things, are they? Because they're getting fed, they're getting looked after, like they're getting cared for, and so there's no reason for the lion or tiger to attack.
The primitive instinct. I absolutely have a literal example of this. I mean, I don't know if you heard in the background, I have a cat that's meowing. A few weeks back, he got outside, and he was originally feral. He lived most of his life, you know, outdoors, and we adopted him, and it's taken a long time to get him to, you know, become domesticated and calm and relaxed. And he's the most loving cat, you know. He's so affectionate. Well, he gets out, and I can't even go near him when he's outside. He runs away from me. I tried to grab him, pick him up. He scratched the hell out of my arm. I got like scars now. And he went right back into feral mode. He went right back to this primitive survival mode. And I had to eventually buy a humane trap and caught him underneath the house. I had to set a trap for him. And then maybe a few days later, he's like exhausted. He goes right back to normal. And now he's like snuggling with me. And so it's really about environment. It's all about what is necessary.
I got a story about that also.
Yeah, I mean, nature and nurture still applies to animals, doesn't it? I mean, they're predatory because they were conditioned to be that way.
Because I was walking down the street one day, I seen this squirrel run past. All I heard was rustling and squealing. Then I looked around the corner. This cat had the squirrel in his mouth, and it looked at me and started running around the corner.
Yeah, they do it.
Around the corner. Yeah, because they're looking like this is a that look like like trying to take his food. Yeah.
Sure. You know, dogs will growl. Even the most docile domesticated animals with good demeanor. You reach down when he's chewing on a bone or something, he's likely to growl and maybe snap at you. So we're talking about instinct, but it's not. We are not. Maybe you guys have heard of like epigenetics and stuff. You know, we're not beholden to our primitive survival, kill or be killed. You know, survival of the fittest instincts. Like everything can adapt and change and become more evolved, more civilized. You know, based on our environment, based on what's going on around us, like the way we interact with other organisms and stuff. So the whole point is we human beings could be so much further along in our evolution right now if our societal structure was different. Like we would be like Star Trek level, with like the Federation, where there's no more religion, everybody's educated, like there's no money, there's no monetary system, but you've got these few people in power, who want to keep their power, who are living in dark ages basically and keeping us all.
We're looking at a huge problem coming our way, humanity's way.
Yeah, but people don't realize that you don't need a monetary system for entertainment or poetry or philosophy or whatever. You can have
and the things that people do. I mean, so of course of course it becomes an incentive. What is it? Necessity is the mother of invention. Of course, people, when they're under pressure and there's a need for it, they can create. But imagine what people could create. Imagine, the expansion of knowledge and creativity and innovation that we would see if we didn't have all these pressures, if we didn't have all these bills and this idea. I mean, every single problem can be traced back. Well, let me put it this way. If you put me in charge, if I was like the ruler of the earth and I had the power, if I literally had the power to do this, okay, there would be three things that I would do, okay? I would get rid of money, I would get rid of religion, and I would sterilize people at least for 10 years so that it would stop breeding, stop reproducing, stop overpopulating in these small uninhabitable zones. Just get our shit together, for a while, and then start up again, and then have some really strict screening processes with who can have children, who can't, because you got just people just reproducing and procreating, and and then the children end up being neglected and abused, and it goes on and on and on. But those three problems, I guarantee you that would change the entire face of the world if you got rid of money, got rid of religion, and then stop people from breeding just for a little while.
Man, I so agree with all that.
You ever heard that story? Sorry. You ever heard that story where that woman had 15 kids? Possibly on 16 or 17.
Old Mother
now.
Hubbard, the shoe? I don't know. Oh,
19 and counting.
Yeah, she literally, last time they had this story, she literally had 15 kids. She was up here talking about somebody's got to pay for all these kids. I'm like,
oh, they use it. Yeah. Those welfare moms use it. Oh, what? They'll keep having kids just to say. I lived in near Pittsburgh in southwest Pennsylvania, and everybody in my building is a Section 8 housing, and these mothers they live for free, and they just use their kids as a way to basically mooch off the government, and it becomes easy, and it becomes hard to break out of that, because this brings up a good point, actually, because a lot of opponents of the Venus Project and Zeitgeist movement will say, give everybody what they need, and they're going to become lazy, or they're just going to take advantage of it, or you're going to see the worst in people. You have to have something to work for. You can't just provide people their basic necessities, because they'll take advantage of it. What are your thoughts on that? Like, personally, I believe we have the capacity to be sinners or saints, so we can go either way. But collectively, I believe at this stage, I think it would absolutely be the most beneficial thing. But I've heard people criticize it and say the opposite. What do you guys think?
Well, what I think is some people, they have like, how can I put this? There's some people who like challenges. They want to better themselves regardless of what economic system we have in place, because some people have very good skills and they want to put them to the test. They don't. Right. There's some people who just don't like sitting around. I mean, Albert Einstein, when he was alive, he enjoyed coming up with theories, didn't he? He enjoyed, his proven science.
Yeah, the people have the natural competitive tendency. They want to play sports, and they like pushing themselves. Exactly. But I mean, think about it. When you do a cross section of what's going on this planet and in the West, I mean, like it doesn't make any sense. Like I feel like it's the opposite. That the most beneficial thing we can do is actually provide provide access to the resources, automate everything, and design a completely new system that's based on ethics and morality. We've never had a culture. And I'm not talking about theocracy, but I'm talking about a culture that is based on the highest good, the highest common, like the health practitioners and stuff, they take like this oath. I mean, they don't follow it, but there's this idea of sort of egalitarian, trying to, push and evolve the human species to live up to our fullest potential. And we've never had a social structure that's just based on that. That's just based on ethics. Yeah. And I don't even know if it could have been possible until now. But because everything can be automated, because of the technology, because of the access of information, the advent of the internet, all these different things, we can make progress now that we've never been able to really make before, where it can be a global community. It can be a global system where it doesn't matter what language you are, all the language barriers, all the culture and the things that divide us can be distilled and just overlooked, based on our biology, that we all need food, we all need air, we all need to drink, clean water, we need shelter, we need clothes, and we need companionship, we need other people. That's it. Those are the basic necessities. So if we all have those things in common, and actually we have that in common with the whole animal kingdom, then that's our common ground. That's what needs to be focused on, because we've gone so far into the sort of pseudo-intellectual, abstract, whatever it is. I mean, you can take a shit on a piece of cardboard and then people want to pay $1,000 and call it art, Like, that's the level of abstraction. It doesn't make any sense, man. And there's and I live in Hollywood. This goes on, man. I live in Hollywood. You know what I'm talking about, the foo-foo, the yuppies and they'll stare at these paintings that have like a red dot and then the rest is like a big white canvas, and that has some kind of significance. I'm saying,
I gotta visit LA one day.
I'm trying to say it's abstract, too far into abstraction. The human race has gone too far, and we've gotten away from what really matters is our our humanity, our biology. What matters in life is the people. There's a stratification where certain people have gigantic, billionaire houses, and then other people are living in cardboard boxes, and it's complete disparity. And that all needs to go, man. That just makes no sense. How about
this for restructuring? Back in '73, the country of Bhutan decided that instead of measuring the success of their country like most other countries do based on gross domestic product, the amount of product, goods, and services a country produces each year, they would measure their success on what they defined as gross domestic happiness, how happy the people were. How does that sound as a measure of success of a country?
Absolutely. Why is everyone on antidepressants? Why is everyone here stressed out? Every person I know in the last 5-10 years has suffered from major anxiety or depression or has some kind of substance abuse problem. I mean, it's dysfunctional. There's an imbalance here where our priorities are completely out of whack. I guess the point I was trying to get to before was that we've gone too far in the wrong directions. We can see our potential, but at the same time, it's not been a holistic growth. I don't believe that the human species is evolving in a balanced way. We're not evolving in a balanced way. We're evolving kind of sporadically. You'll have geniuses and prodigies.
I think we're heading to a dystopia, actually.
One of the reasons why I want the Venus Project to happen is because it will reduce crime sharply. I mean, if you provide people with the necessities of life and take money out of the equation, then where's the incentive to steal?
No need. Like I said this, every single problem that you can think of. I don't say this lightly. I mean, I've literally thought about this for hours and hours and hours. Every problem that you can think of in the world today can be traced back to those three things: to overpopulation, families that are multiplying, families that are multiplying exponentially without the resources to provide, without the intelligence, without the mental and emotional stability to make them good parents in the first place, and everything else goes back to money and religion. Every single freaking problem goes back to people's. And when I say religion, I mean it in a general sense: the ideologies, the belief systems, the philosophies that people
free will belief
hold.
Oh my
What's
gosh.
Free will belief is basically a religion in itself, isn't it?
Hey, I wanted to ask you guys something because I don't have a problem with that at all. To me, that's almost a moot point. That I'm a pantheist, so Spinoza didn't believe in free will either. I believe I'll tell you my little bit right now, and then you guys can tell me, from your perspective. Actually,
wait a minute, guys. Chandler, how long have we gone on this podcast?
Yeah, I'm not sure. But
it's about 25 minutes probably.
Because if you guys want, how about if we end this podcast and then devote the next one to free will, pantheism, and just
sure.
Excellent.
Oh, I thought I was actually thinking it was all one thing, so that's cool. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could do it all as
we talked
one
enough
thing.
shit about Trump, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
we could do it all as one big episode, or we could just, do a new one of free will, science, or religion, and talk about like how the pantheism and no free will relate.
Yeah, I'm glad
Sure.
Poffo mentioned the Venus Project and all that stuff because it sounds like a good idea. With automation, that means not as many people will have to work, right, Poffo?
Absolutely, we will all be working, but will not be working for the middleman. We won't be working in jobs that we hate. We'll actually be doing what we're good at. You ever watch Futurama? It's kind of messed up, but they assign people, the jobs based on whatever their skills are. I mean, that's the way it would be, but not so much a mandatory thing. Literally, whatever you're good at. Like, for example, I write. I'm an author, and I speak, and I'm also an artist. There's a couple different options there. Different things I could do to contribute to society. You basically just do whatever you're good at, and you contribute, and then someone else does whatever they're good at, and they contribute, and they meet the needs that where you're lacking, and it's a system of checks and balances, and you have equality. But what we have now makes absolutely no sense.
And they will be free of charge, which means you go to university, study whatever you want to, and then become a
it'll be brilliant. That's one of the biggest burdens. I think I have like a $14,000 loan I have to pay back.
Man.
Damn, man.
And that's why I didn't do college.
I just keep putting it. I just keep deferring it, and I'm just like, maybe we'll get to a cashless society and everything will be by the time, but like,
you're gonna have to pay it back. Trust me. I heard from experience. They're gonna make you pay that shit.
I did. I paid back my first loan of my first time I went to college. I had to pay that back.
Pay it. One day you wake up, you get a tax return, a nice one. You're about to get a car and all this. They get a letter that said, you owe us this money. We have to take your entire check.
He reminds me of Al Roker on Family Guy. Now to you. Anyway, yeah, man, like they'll come after you. The IRS, it's ridiculous. The fear tactics they use.
Oh yeah, and like sometimes when you get a credit card thing, it lasts for like 7 years. Oh no, this doesn't go away.
Yeah, I hope that we go to a moneyless system within our lifetime because that'll be great. And not having to worry about bills, not having to worry about debt. I mean, it's happening, but it's happening in different ways. I mean, you have the RFID chips, you have the Bitcoin, you've got like different systems, and people are doing it. And there's people who've completely resisted this. They haven't paid taxes in like 15 years. They that the federal income tax is completely illegal, and it was never really officially signed into law. Like we're not legally required to pay that tax, but they will literally come for you. If you don't do your taxes right, and it's all I don't know, man. It's oppression to me. It's all oppression. And,
I so know what you mean. Yeah,
there's more of us than there are of them. So that's the idea: is education, awareness, raising the consciousness to get everybody on board. So we recognize like this idea of maritime law, and that we're not really the person, with our name in all capitals. We lose all our rights and privileges as a sentient human being, and become slaves to the system, to the government. The police brutality. Don't even get me started on that, man. Like just how ill-trained cops are, and everything that goes on, how they escalate situations. You guys know. But anyway, what do you want to do?
Surprisingly, I haven't had any problems here in Philly. Haven't heard
what the monetary system pushes is the slave labor that corporations do in foreign countries. I mean, have you seen sweatshops and factories in Asia?
Right. And then it's all about loaning money so that you can basically control other countries, other nations. Like we give them certain technologies, we give them certain resources, and then we got them in our pocket, And I'm speaking us, but I'm not a part of it. I'm talking about our government, our corrupt government,
Yeah, and there's a huge difference between what the citizens actually want and what the government does. And like Jamie and I have talked about this.
Not by the people, for the people. It's for the few. It's for the elites. It's absolutely not by the people. I got one other thing to say though. I'm hopeful about humanity and the evolution of our species. I believe in the potential of human beings, but I am very cynical and pessimistic about society as a whole, like society in general.
I'm kind of losing hope.
That's what I'm trying to say is that I have seen so much ignorance and so much violence and so much stupidity and racism and bigotry and prejudice and just everything, just dogmatic, indoctrinated, religious fundamentalists. And what I'm trying to say is, I think I am a bit of an aristocrat, and in the sense that I don't think that we're all created equal. No, we all have the potential to do and be extraordinary, do extraordinary things. But I believe that people in societies right now, like a person with advanced communication skills and whatever, should not be working flipping burgers, and a person who only has certain skill set and is not that educated should not be put in positions of authority. And everybody knows this, obviously. I mean, I'm just brave enough to just say it.
Yeah.
So what I'm trying to say is, like we need to, we need to let people do what they're good at, and not stifle other people that could be making, creating inventions and doing things. And all of that gets stifled and
have
suppressed.
Produce abundance things so people don't get jealous of each other.
Oh yeah, there's that, yeah, and efficiency, like the waste and the overproduction of all this crap that has to be. The Westerners, Americans are obsessed with individuality and everything being, designer and everything and expressing themselves, but it makes no sense. It's not even logical. It's not rational. To have so many different versions of one product.
Oh,
it's
yeah.
gonna end up breaking down so that someone else can have a job to fix it. Build shit so that it lasts, so that it's like the highest quality, and then we can move forward and make progress. But that's not what the system is designed for. It's designed to keep people working, to keep people
buying it.
And obsolescence.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
What he said.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I so agree. Because see, here's the deal, and like earlier, Poffo mentioned like the three things about like people who are breeding nonstop, and then there's like religion, and then there's money, and those are like the three things he wanted to get rid of if he was like king of the world, and that was funny but true. I get that. I see how those are like
every problem can be traced back to those things. Well, see, let me clarify this for a second. It's not that breeding or yeah, actually it is, but I'm saying it's not the act of procreation that's evil. It's that ignorant, uneducated people who don't have the resources to maintain and sustain families are having children. That's the problem. So it's not the act of procreation, it's the act of procreation in this uneducated, unenlightened society. That's the point. When it comes to money and religion, absolutely they need to be done away with. And I could talk about those, forever. Every single problem can be traced back to that. And every single atrocity committed throughout history can be traced back to that, to the wealth and greed, and it the monetary system just it just perpetuates that. Everything is predicated on that, man.
Well, yeah, those three things, though, I want to say they're a triangle because they are so interlocked and so connected, those three things. Because here's the deal. You guys already know that organized religion, the established religions, the churches, the mosques, the synagogues,
institutionalized religion.
Yeah, institutionalized religion, that is completely driven by money. It's about making people believe the things that make them give money to that church, make them keep coming back so that they can keep being indoctrinated with what that church wants them to believe so they can keep getting their money. Like money and religion are so tight you can't break them apart or religion dies instantly. Like religion is
time with each other.
Yeah.
I want to say the actual pastors and priests and deacons and elders and whatever, or organizers of individual churches, I don't believe that they are in it. I mean, they're obviously there's corruption and bad apples and televangelists and people ripping people off and manipulating people. But I'm saying the majority actually believe in this mythology. I'll just call it mythology. That's what it is. So they believe in it, and what they're doing is providing a community. They're providing comfort and hope and inspiration. And what churches represent is actually what we should have, but minus all the bullshit. Take out all the mythology and all the stories and the myths and legends and all the anachronistic morality that's, from archaic Bronze Age holy books. Take all that out and actually have communities, actually have, places where people can go, where they can fellowship, actually, with common ideals that, provide support and encouragement through different phases in life. That's very important. That's necessary. It's just, they're built on mythologies that don't exist, and what they're breeding is delusion. They're breeding delusional people who end up becoming like essentially robots and slaves to whatever that ideology is, and it just keeps reproducing like a virus. And you say faith is a virus.
Yeah.
But they don't. I'm saying the people involved themselves, though they make money from it, I believe that they're doing it because they actually believe in heaven and hell and angels and demons and all these different things. And they feel that they're doing a service. You see what I'm trying to say? They feel like they're doing a service and helping people because that's their mission on earth. I'm an ex-evangelical Christian, and I thought it was my mission to literally convert everyone and preach the gospel and fulfill, the Jesus' last request to go on to all the nations. And I was doing it not for any other reason except that I believed it, and it was exactly what I thought was going to happen when you die. And they give you, the answers to the unanswerable questions. That's what religion does, and so it's very deceptive because we're all asking those existential questions. And in my worldview, philosophy and poetry and art and inspiration, and the biggest thing is nature and learning everything that we can from the natural world. This is where we find those answers, not a not a medium, not a pope or a pastor or a priest or a guru or whatever. I believe we have it all around us, access to this wisdom, and we should draw from the best sources. But that's what religion does. It takes a monopoly on it, and it controls it and says, we have all the answers. Come to us, and also if you don't, you're going to burn in hell forever. This is the in group, they're the out group. So it really is very deeply. There's a lot of psychological elements there.
Oh yeah, and I totally understand what you were saying, that these pastors and priests and whatever, like, they don't actually intentionally they do believe this stuff. Most of them, I think. I agree with you there. They don't realize how it's really all connected with, like, the mythology and the money are so connected, when really, like you said, there are some things that religion provides that can be good, a community and stuff like that, but it can be done without the bullshit, like you said. It's sort of like how, like, there's an added ingredient to a loaf of bread that you don't want. Like, no, I don't want high fructose corn syrup in the bread. I don't want dairy or eggs in my bread. Sure. And it's like there's
the icing on the cake. Yeah, we know it as preservatives and artificial ingredients, but to them, it's what makes it so sweet. I gotta tell you this. This is very important. This is what religions do. They tap into these archetypes, these very, very deep, like sort of a lot of symbolism and these deep questions of where we came from, why are we here, where are we going, what happens after we die, why is there evil in the world, like what are our origins, like it's who are we as humans. So they're answering these very important questions, and they're tapping into sort of these mythical archetypes, which make it so powerful. It's the same reason people love Lord of the Rings or any kind of fiction, science fiction or fantasy, because you literally have a good guy, a bad guy, and you're telling a story. So that's very important. That and it makes it very appealing. And then there's the ritual aspect. Humans do have a need for a repetition, for ritual, for observance. To tap into something that's greater than themselves. Whether it's the past, your culture, the religious history or the religious mythology becomes like hugely important and appealing, because we all need that. Like, I mean, not all of us, I'm speaking in general, but like we love stories and things that actually tell these sort of symbolic hero's journey, and that's what the gospel is. It's the hero's journey. So that's why it becomes so, what's the word, appealing and addictive, I guess, is because it's very deceptive. It's tapping into what actually makes us human, and so secularists and atheists, agnostics would they would find this in in art and poetry and philosophy and fiction and reading books and things like that, or in their own life. They become the hero of their own journey in their life. What the religious do is they feed off of that, and with this sheep mentality, everyone buys into the same story, to one story, and then they apply it to their entire life, and so everything makes sense. Oh, why did this happen? It's because of the devil. There's evil in the world. Oh, why is there evil if there's a good God? Oh, because we have free will. Because mankind chose to eat the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil. So that's why it's so deceptive. I mean, it's the biggest scam ever that they literally answer every question, and no matter what you think about, everything can be attributed to the the characters in this story, the forces and powers and the characters in this mythos. Like, I'm a huge fan of Lovecraft, right? So like, imagine if I took the Cthulhu mythos seriously and I projected it onto my life. So now everything that happens, I mean, this is just an allegory, an example. Everything that happens, I say it's because of Cthulhu. I say it's because of the old ones. It's the Shoggoths. It's this is happening because of this. This is really. So that's exactly what religion is. It's a mythos that then gets projected onto reality, and then it just gets confirmed. It gets reinforced because the mythos itself has all the elements, of reality. It's just giving the answers to the origins of all those things and where they came from. So yeah, I could talk about this stuff forever.
I can tell, and I agree with that. What you're saying is religion. It finds a part about humans, a need that they have, and then it tries to answer their questions. That we all ask deep questions sometimes. Then it provides a set of answers to those questions. Unfortunately, the problem often is that by having those provided answers, first of all, most of them are not true. Second of all, it prevents people from finding the real reasons for why things happen, prevents them from doing philosophy and actually finding real answers, and that's why it's harmful, of course. That's one of the reasons it's harmful.
It's laziness. It's like they make people. It makes people lazy because it gives you all the answers. It's like a movie. Instead of reading a book, and you make the greatest visual images in your mind, in your own mind, you got the movie and it just gives it all for you, and it's like, oh, and it's really easy. I mean, like video is probably the most influential form of communication, right? Of transferring information, is just seeing the pictures on a screen and hearing the visuals. So people don't want to do the legwork, or they don't have time because they're trapped in a system where they have to work 9 to 5 and more to so it's all interconnected.
Yeah, that's just it.
What people need to realize is that to improve society, you need to agree with the scientific method. You have to follow the evidence. When it comes to human behavior, I find myself agreeing with Jack Fresco. I mean, I think violence oftentimes comes from scarcity or fear of scarcity or competition.
Structural violence.
Yeah, competition. Yeah.
It's the structural violence based on the system that a person is put into. I mean, you have an animal and it's abused and it's mistreated, and you put it in a corner and treat it a certain way. It's going to lash out. It's going to become more primitive. If you take that animal and you raise it in a nurturing, loving home and give it all the support and validation and encouragement, then it ends up being this beautiful, friendly creature. So that's it's the greater system. We have to really think holistically and stop thinking stop being so myopic in our visions, in our outlook on life. So look at the big picture. Think holistically about how everything is affecting everything else. See, I think this way because, I mean, my pantheist philosophy, one of the core tenets, the foundation, is that everything is connected. Everything is interconnected. And this is what science and quantum physics tells us and everything, that we're all entangled. But people don't think that way. I mean, we have this delusion, or this Einstein talked about it, that the illusion of separation and distinction, that we're all individuals, and we are. But at the same time, we all have the same basic needs. Everything's interdependent on everything else. So we just have to change the whole model and think much more holistically. Whether it's our health, whether it's government, religion, anything, we have to think more holistically, more of a systems theory. I'm a huge proponent of systems theory.
Yeah, and what creationists and free will believers don't understand is that everything's shoved by something else, even human behavior. There's always a cause to,
Sure. Oh, I never got to that. All I was going to say was I don't actually personally believe in free will because, okay, I mean, it's pretty obvious. Like, we make choices. We all make choices. Everyone makes choices. That's not the issue. It's that there is no choice or decision that we can make that is not influenced by some external or internal, force. Everything that we decide comes from a need, a desire, comes from a pre-existing, something that's pre-existent. We're not in a vacuum, in a bubble, just deciding things, but we are reacting to things. It's our our internal drives, our internal needs that are prompting those decisions, whether it's fear or hunger or happiness or whatever. We're pursuing things and we're doing things and we decide things and make decisions based on the interaction with the world around us. So there's no choice or decision I can make that's not influenced by something, whether it's my brain, my mind, my body, or something external outside of me. So in that sense, it doesn't, there is no, like, what's the word, like, isolated sense of free will, because everything is causational. Everything is cause and effect. So whatever choice you make, that's an effect based on a prior pre-existing cause.
Yeah, that's
You
a
guys
beautiful.
agree? You guys agree?
Yeah, that's a beautiful
we're on
explanation. Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it, Poffo, because basically, it's understanding that, like, I get kind of tripped up on the word choice because the idea of a choice is too closely related to the concept of free will that people still have, that they think that they chose something and they think it is them and that the whole rest of the universe is irrelevant and that their decisions aren't caused by anything else.
Right. It's solipsism. Yeah.
Yeah.
Complete solipsism is, you're isolated. You think the world revolves around you, and there's nothing else but you and your perception of things.
Well, yeah. Basically, solipsism and free will belief and narcissism and selfishness, basically, they're all related. They're all kind of outsides of the same thing, in my opinion. Like, I think that free will belief, or believing yourself to be a separate chooser or controller that's independent of the rest of the universe, makes you become a selfish person. Like, I really think so.
Or
sure. Yeah. Because there is distinction. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Believe in libertarian free will, aren't you? Like, if someone does something that offends you, either if it's an opinion or whatever, you're more likely to hold a grudge against them than if you didn't believe in free will.
Yeah.
What I was gonna say, like, determinism, all that kind of stuff. It gets complex. I mean, it gets complex with Spinoza. He uses a lot of heavy language, and it gets really complex and convoluted when you have Calvinists and fundamentalists and people that that you have these kind of orthodox groups within Christianity that believe that there is determination, that everything has been determined ahead of time in advance, and so no matter what you do, you're just doing exactly what was already laid out. This gets complex. I mean, because there is some truth to that. Like, in my model, there is truth when it comes to the concept of time, that we are experiencing time in a linear sense, start to finish, beginning and end. But
let's get into that, because on this podcast we've had differences related to this. In other words, I'm a pantheist also, right?
Sure.
And as a pantheist, I see like the universe and God are synonymous, right? God is everywhere. But like some of us on this podcast, they're not here today, most of them, or maybe perhaps all of them. They don't believe that the universe can be either conscious or intelligent. Whereas, basically, this idea that we human beings don't have a free will, is in a sense saying that nothing is up to us, but then we have to explain everything we do in terms of what is causing us to do this. So what's your take on, the universe in terms of, for example, the laws of nature, everything being governed, created, controlled by some kind of entity that we can either refer to as God or the universe?
Okay, do we have time to get into this? I was going to ask.
Well, we might as well go with this because, unless you want to, like, Chandler, do you want to do a different podcast for this, or?
Well, here's what I'm thinking, guys, is I'm thinking that that because this is all one conversation, I don't necessarily like the idea of splitting it up. I kind of just like us to have it all just flow how one subject flows to another.
Yeah,
So,
keep it organic.
Sounds good, Chandler. All right.
That's cool. Yeah, I have no qualms at all about discussing this, and this is what I spend like 95% of my time actually doing. Okay, I don't believe that the universe is conscious on any kind of cognitive, intellectual, anthropomorphic humanoid level, and for a very simple reason that there is pain and suffering in the world. That there cannot be a conscious deity or a conscious being that's in control of everything, that is superior and knows about everything that's going on and everything that animals and humans suffer, and never intervene and that's basically the deistic God, which is he's just an asshole. He's a complete asshole because he created everything and then he just let it do its thing, and that's just like a delinquent, neglectful parent. I don't believe that at all. But what I do believe is, and obviously, everything is aware on a certain level. Molecules, plants, every single atom is aware on a certain level, not an intellectual level, but kind of like on a responsive level, because it interacts with everything else around it. A table, a car, a chair, a cat, a human would not be what they are if the elements of their body were not on some level conscious of the other aspects of their body and the other aspects of reality. So you have these degrees so that everything is aware, okay? And then as evolution progresses and transpires, you have sentience where animals, think and feel, and then you have sapience where higher animals, cetaceans, dolphins and whales, primates and humans have the ability to think with complex abstraction and can cognate, use reason and dream and imagine things, and that's sapience. And then you have consciousness.
Hold on. Let's explore the idea of a universe that either plans or doesn't plan from the perspective of evolution. I think we all agree about evolution. And let's explore this example. You have an animal that takes, let's say, 5 million years to evolve wings where it can fly. Let's say it's a bat. Let's say it's whatever preceded the bird. Now, what I can't understand is like how that cannot have been planned, because, like, in other words, like for generation after generation after generation, these wing-like things, wings are developing, but they're not useful for hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years. And so, like, I can't see a process by which that can happen unless there was a guiding planning process that knew that, like, 5 million years later, there would be wings.
All right, so I think I understand your perspective, but I mean, if you understand evolutionary biology, evolution has no agenda, it has no outcome, it has no predetermined plan. It actually just literally responds based on whatever organism, whatever situation, whatever organism is in, and then the helpful and beneficial traits are what get passed on, and then the ones that don't work and are negative or maladaptive.
I know, but relate that. I understand that, but relate that to a wing.
I'm saying that's how it works. I'm saying over millions of years, what you have is the most efficient organisms at whatever they are, whether it's a tiger or a wolf or a bat or a bird, because the most beneficial traits are what are being passed on.
I understand what you're saying, but think about what I'm proposing. In other words, like, before the wings, are functional, they're like stumps. They could be like stumps for hundreds of thousands of years. Then they're bigger stumps, and they have absolutely no use, until they become fully functioning wings.
I don't think it would be useless. Just like the ostrich, they'll use it to fly, but their wings does have some uses. Like when it's running, it kind of make They use it for aerodynamics.
I'm sorry. I think I understand what you're saying, but we don't want to get confused. We don't want to project this it's difficult because I do believe that there is this teleological intent. What you're talking about is teleology, and I do believe there's this teleological intent, but it is not specific. The only intention of God, the universe, nature, whatever, is to evolve and become more efficient and more self-aware, self-organize, adapt, evolve, survive. I think what you're actually talking about is the inclination, what I would call the divine principle, the life principle that's found in all nature, that actually allows living organisms to evolve and adapt. The fact that we adapt at all, because it's the adaptation that creates the beneficial traits which get passed on. But I think what you're sort of marveling over is, and in a good way, I think it's the ability to adapt at all. It's the process itself for interacting with other organisms, other environments. That's what weeds out the weak and makes the strong survive and allows beneficial mutations, whether it's mutations or different traits, whatever traits happen to be the most efficient, most beneficial, or what get passed on. It's the ability of all living organisms to adapt itself. That's right, the miracle there.
Even if we simplify, we can simplify this away from wings to the simple drive to reproduce and survive. It seems like living organisms have this.
Why is it even there?
That's my question. Exactly. Yeah.
Sure. Why is it there? I believe it's there because I believe that all of nature is the body of God, which is essentially unconscious and is now coming back into conscious awareness of itself. It is evolving to become one cohesive being again. The moment of the Big Bang, literally, I believe the Dios, destroyed itself, literally became the physical universe, and now over millions and millions of years, 13.7 billion years of evolution, and not knowing ahead of time how it was going to work out, but doing it for the sake of the experience itself, for the sake of knowledge, of education, for the sake of experiencing the novelty of being all the different things that the universe and nature is. And it's that internal, what you're talking about is that innate, intrinsic, internal drive, that push to evolve, adapt, survive, become something better, become self-organized, become more and more self-aware, greater and greater levels. That's what nature is doing. Nature is collectively as a whole on this planet, we don't know on other planets, but I believe it's happening everywhere, is becoming more and more and more self-aware and literally waking up, almost if I'm going to use allegorical anthropomorphic terms, just so you follow me, because I don't think you guys are too opposed to that. So this is the simplest way I can explain it. It's like God existed before the Big Bang, okay? Whatever you think of as God, an infinite, all-knowing being that was omniscient, omnipresent, everywhere, all at once, but yet it existed in potentiality. There was just infinite thoughts, like every, quantum fluctuations of every possible scenario that could ever be. And it literally could not be anything because it was everything. So it literally gave up its divinity and became the universe so that it could experience the entire process that the universe and nature is experiencing from start to finish, from the Big Bang onward to the development of conscious life.
All right, so let me ask you something. All right, so let me ask you something. Let me ask you something in terms of time then. Let's say, sure, going on what you just said, the universe is 13.8 billion years old. So are you saying that this potentiality existed as a potentiality throughout the eternal past?
Go ahead. Sorry.
Or another possibility is that there have been infinite number of big bangs and big crunches. It's
sure,
a back and forth.
The model is, this gets into some other stuff. I can talk to you guys about it later, but I believe that the universe is fundamentally a gigantic torus, so that you have the funnel and the singularity. I thought you were going to ask me, was the potentiality there? All the potential for the universe that exists, for the known universe, was in that singularity. That's why I'm a pantheist, and I'm not just an agnostic, an atheist, or a staunch materialist, reductionist scientist, because the potentiality is there, and then it expanded outward, and it's the creation, the self-organization. It's all eminent. It's internal. It's intrinsic in nature itself. It's doing this from within, not from without, not from outside, like an outside source. But the universe, nature itself, is evolving itself over millions and millions of years of time. And what I'm saying is this would never have happened unless something initiated it, unless there was a first cause that wanted all of this to happen. I mean, everything that we see that's transpired is exactly like what the universe wanted. It just had no idea how it was going to transpire. It let its own nature kind of start to reorganize and reassemble itself. That's what it's doing through conscious life. You follow me? I know it's
Well, I
deep,
have a question. It sounded kind of like earlier, like about like God. You were talking about God becoming the physical universe with the Big Bang, and then it's sort of reorganizing into a self-aware thing again or something. It sounds almost like a supernova. Like it sounds like how stars explode, but
every single action and activity that goes on in the cosmos, it's a fractal. It's another version, like as above, so below, of what actually is happening on the macro scale. So when you can literally understand this just by examining fruit. Just by examining our own human biology, we're actually all doing the same exact thing. We're doing the same process. We're taking energy, processing it, and then expanding it out. It gets recycled. It's all a cyclical model. It's a system. And what you were saying is part of my ontology is pantheism, which essentially means that there was this infinite being that it's unknowable. We can't know it. We will never know. But what I know is whatever it was, everything that exists is a reflection of it. Everything that exists had to have come from it. So what I'm saying is it was actually the ultimate potentiality. It's just pure potential energy, just pure conscious potential energy. And then it became physical matter. And now it almost like erased its own memory, so that now the process of nature and evolution is the process of divinity coming back into cohesion with itself. And it's learning and growing, and through human beings and through sentient and sapient organisms, we are just now learning that suffering and death and pain and murder and lying and stealing and killing is wrong. And we are evolving beyond all that to basically embrace all of the other differentiated aspects of ourself, which is nature. We are all nature. We are products of nature, and so God is the universe, God is nature, and God literally is remembering that it's God. And that's why conscious life is becoming conscious. And eventually, I mean, this is my future extrapolation, that we will come back into coherence and through symbiotic relationships. That's what we're all moving toward, altruism and cooperation. We're literally just accepting the other aspects of our own body. That's what we are. But we human beings are very unique. We are specifically, we are the mind and sort of the conscience, like in terms of morality and ethics, of this divine being, which is the cosmos.
I've got two questions. I've got two questions. Like you say,
developing morality.
So we human beings are the consciousness of this reality. But I would suppose you would also say that whatever other life, sentient life, evolved life there is in the universe is, along with us, we human beings, part of this consciousness.
Yeah,
okay?
Absolutely. Every other species, every other planet, every other galaxy and solar system. There's 8.8 billion Earth-like planets just in the Milky Way alone. That's just one galaxy. So everywhere throughout the universe, this is happening. This is transpiring. We only know the history and the experience of our planet, but I believe this is happening everywhere. I mean, we're just too far away from other
The other question is about basic logic. In other words, I believe you posited the idea of a first cause, and doesn't that seem to transcend logic, or just in other words, what would have caused the first cause? That's kind of a logical question.
There is the infinite regression problem. The problem with infinite regression, that's okay, because what we're literally talking about is the existence of nature itself. Look at it. I'll put it in more materialistic scientific terms. The laws of nature have always existed. The universe has not always existed. The universe as we know it started 13.8 billion years ago. But the laws of nature, meaning nature itself, existence itself, already existed before this. Otherwise, where did all of this come from? This is just the local manifestation. It's the other side of what was on the other side of the Big Bang.
Yeah, this is where I have to jump in, guys, because this is where I have to jump in, because here's the deal. The way I look at it, as far as the infinite regress is concerned, I can agree with Poffo here in that the universe as we know it now did not exist. like the way it's configured, the way things are arranged, the way what we see is. However, there has always been matter, like in the laws of nature. Like, so I'm sort of like the infinite regress eternal universe.
Actually, energy. It would have been energy. There was no matter before the Big Bang. There was just energy. But matter is energy, just on a lower frequency, on a slower vibrating frequency.
I'm using them interchangeably. Yeah, I'm using them interchangeably.
It's always been energy. Yeah.
Right. I'm using the terms interchangeably because I don't really know the difference.
Energy matter. Yeah, they call it energy matter now.
Yeah, energy / matter, whatever you call it, is eternal in that sense of always having existed. And that's because as far as I've heard it, matter is neither created nor destroyed. Like the same energy or the same matter.
Einstein's law of conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It's just transformed. So energy has always existed. So God, if you want to call it God, whatever you want to call it, I call it the Omnia. Because omnia is Latin for all, for everything. So instead of using the word God, because there's so much baggage and negative connotations along with that because of the religious traditions, I say the omnia. The omnia has always existed. The all, the everything, the universe, nature has always existed in one form or another. Our particular universe right now is this particular manifestation of the universe. And it's getting back to that idea of consciousness. Everything has a level of awareness, but only the higher life forms. You need a brain and a mind, as a medium to produce consciousness. But everything is aware. Atoms are aware. Like everything responds to everything else because it is aware of everything else on a certain level, not on the same cognitive intellectual level, as sapient sentient organisms, but everything is aware. So that gets into panpsychism, which you guys were talking about on that other podcast. I'm not a panpsychist because that is too close to animism, the idea that everything is alive and conscious and kind of has its own mind. I mean, we know that plants respond, and they can respond to pain and fear and all these different things, and in their own way they are conscious, but we don't want to use the word conscious. I don't choose to use the word consciousness when it comes to non-human, the lower life forms. I would say, everything is just aware. Everything is aware, then everything becomes sentient, then everything becomes sapient, then everything becomes conscious, and consciousness is the goal. I believe consciousness existed before the Big Bang, and it's what will exist at the end of time. And it's what's driving and pushing everything is the memory of that consciousness that's latent within all energy matter, that's causing it to adapt and evolve and survive and reproduce and function autonomously and heal. That is the divine principle within matter.
Some of us on this podcast have advocated for order emerging from disorder, whereas if we start with the premise that the laws of nature have always existed, then it would seem that we're like, my position on this is that that order has to be preeminent. Order has to precede everything else.
You're saying what I said. You're saying what I believe. This is called pantheism. You're just saying what I believe in a different way. That we call it the Dios. Obviously, it's logical that you cannot have this propensity, this penchant for life and for evolution without having like a singular wish or desire or intention to cause it. This is just cause and effect. This is the law of cause and effect. Scientists want to get away from that because there's no material, empirical, physical evidence for it. But it's just deduction. It's just logical reason that causality, cause and effect. Whatever it was, it wanted all of this, and that's why all of this happened. I know that it's not conscious, and this isn't a God that we can relate to and sort of pray to and petition and
right. We're not talking about a God that
try
can
to do
just,
favors.
Yeah.
This is not theism. This is not theism. This is not it's not theism. It's not monotheism. Okay, it's not polytheism. It's deism, but it's not that the watchmaker, the creator, made everything and then went away to not care. It made everything by being everything, by becoming everything. So it's actually, you don't have to be mad at God for suffering, pain and suffering, because it's God that's actually suffering. Every time a human and animal suffers, everything that everyone goes through, that is God suffering and learning what suffering is and learning experientially what it's like to be a subjective manifestation of itself.
Yeah, Poffo. Basically, we're not talking about like the type of God that people are believing in, where they think they can pray and have God change the laws of physics so that people stop falling toward the ground or something like that.
Miracles and suspending the laws of nature. No, the laws of nature are in place so that God can evolve. But
you guys got to understand, like, whenever anybody prays, because we don't have a free will, it's actually God making them pray for what God already knew what they were going to pray if we believe in
or what they want. I mean, there's some weird ramifications to this, because in my model, in my toroidal model, the God of myth and legend, that's what we're talking about. We're talking like this God of myth and legend that is, Jehovah, Yahweh, Allah, just to use the monotheistic faiths. This God of myth and legend actually existed before the beginning of time, and it's actually what we're all evolving into, and that's what we're becoming. It does not exist right now because we're not all united. We haven't all become one organism. That's what all of the life forms in every other star system and galaxy and on every planet is doing. It's literally coming back into cohesion with itself. This is the purpose of evolution, is to go through this whole experience.
Do you believe that this process will have to take, let's say, hundreds of billions of years more, or do you think it can like happen at any time instantaneously?
It's fascinating. Obviously, I would wish for it to happen in my lifetime or in the near future, and I'm trying to contribute to it by being a vegan and by activism. But obviously, I mean, if we're talking on a purely physical level, we're talking about in like light years into the future. We're talking about billions and billions and billions of years of every living organism uniting and becoming one. But you know what? This is what's fascinating. Okay, with the advent of the internet and technology, I mean, we're going to get to a point where we can literally upload our consciousness, okay, and clone human bodies, through stem cells and whatever. Your body gets old and gets worn out. You just upload your consciousness. You make a new body, and you potentially live forever. You can extend the telomeres and essentially become immortal. That's the first step, is overcoming death. We overcome death, we become immortal, we continue to educate ourselves, and we grow and expand, in this exponential rate because of the interconnectedness of our technology, and eventually probably have psychic abilities and all this stuff that we're talking about, human evolution. I mean, X-Men stuff. And who knows? I mean, maybe it could happen sooner than expected. Maybe we're a part of it right now, a raising consciousness, this kind of universal pantheistic worldview, just believing that everything is interconnected, that everything is really divine. This is very important, because this absolutely does away with all stratification, all discrimination, all disparity between people and animals. We're talking about the ultimate form of equality. If we're literally all made of stardust and we all came from the singularity and we are all divine, imagine a world where human beings saw each other as fellow, not just members of the same family, but parts of each other's body. Like, we are all one living organism, and we are. Yeah. And imagine if we could cultivate this, and we could promote this, and we could, foster this mindset that literally there is no distinction. The distinctions between us are so minuscule. It takes, how many trillions of cells are in your arm, in your body right now? They're all working together in cohesion and unity to form your arm, to do all the things that the skin cells do, or any part of your body, that the liver, how it detoxifies, the stuff in you, the microorganisms in your gut that are working. We're all part of one, gigantic organism.
Yeah.
The sooner we realize that, better.
And basically, what you're saying basically is, imagine if we were all realizing, if we were aware that we were all one, and all the humans were working together as well as the cells in our body work together. That would basically form the ultimate intelligent, efficient system. And you
realize that it's going to happen. You know why it's going to happen? Because our bodies are already doing it, and we didn't create our own bodies. Something else created our own body. Well, you know what? The human race might die out, but life itself will go on in some other way, shape, or form. Life through panspermia, on other planets will continue to evolve, and it might not be Homo sapiens that make it there, but we got some good chances now, like Carl.
Well,
Soden
yeah.
used to say.
See, that's what I talk about. That's my idea of eternal life. The fact that life of some form having no beginning and not really having an end either. And see, Poffo, like, here's the deal. Like, I tell people that I'm atheist because I don't believe in the mythos, the God of legend, the one of the Christianity, Judaism, Islam, all that stuff. Yeah. But at the same time, as far as everything being the one universe, we're all life, we're all matter, energy, universe.
It's monism. It's called substance monism. Monism, mono meaning one.
Yeah,
substance
all
monism.
is one.
We're all one thing. We're all just one thing scattered up into trillions of different parts.
Yeah, so I fully agree with that. Yeah, I fully agree with the oneness, the monism.
Hey, I got news for you, Chandler. You're a pantheist.
Well,
you don't even know it.
Well, here's the deal. It's like
I'm an atheist too. I'm an atheist to every other man-made religion that's ever been created. I don't believe in Yahweh or Jesus or Thor or Zeus or Hades or I'm trying to think of some more exotic, Quetzalcoatl.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I don't believe in any other god that's ever been invented by man. Those are all projections. Those are all those human, fallacies projecting onto nature, personifying nature. I don't believe in a personal anthropomorphic deity. I believe in a reality. I just look at nature and I look at the natural world. I look at what science tells us, and I understand that like literally we're all connected and we're all one thing. And this, we need to recognize that and work together and live in harmony with nature, because that's us living in harmony with ourselves.
Yeah. See, here's the deal. Like I said in a previous a podcast I did with the guys, how someone could be pantheist and atheist at the same time. Because you're atheist to like those traditional gods of the old holy books or whatever, but you're like, if you subscribe to monism and you realize we're all one, that this one reality universe, and some like George call it God, and then Poffo, what you've done is you've introduced this new word of the Omnia, like the Omni meaning all. And that makes sense because that provides us like an alternative term to use, because the word God does have a lot of baggage. And see, that's been my only disagreement. Like, because, George has talked about pantheism and called it acutheism on previous podcasts. My only disagreement has been not wanting to use the word God because of the baggage associated with that word.
I don't even like the word pantheism because it implies theism. I'm not a theist, and this is not theism. I don't believe in, a distinct higher intelligence that is omniscient, omnipresent, omnipotent, and intervenes and it interacts with with the material world. That's theism. I don't believe in the God of mainstream conventional religions.
Right.
I would call it something else. I actually came up with omnideist monism. So omnideism. Right, so that's all.
Yeah, I've been trying to search for a term, like for what I actually believe, because like
you can call it whatever you want. You could just say you believe in biocentrism and whatever you're you're a human.
Yeah, because a long time ago, like if you look like on one of the titles of our Free Will Science Religion podcast that I did, its title I believe is Biotheism and Intentional Evolution, and that was where
really? You use the word biotheism?
Yeah,
I have a friend who came up with that. He has his own sort of codification of pantheism that he developed, called biotheism. I think he changed it to biosophy now. It's called biosophy.
Here's what's funny. Here's how it happened, Poffo.
Where'd you get that word?
Well, here's the deal, Poffo. Basically, I had never heard that word before, but here's the deal. After I met George, and since pantheism, like pan, what's supposed to mean all, and theism means God, and he was saying, well, God is all, God is the reality, one universe, and he was saying that stuff, and I thought, well, what if I just say God is life, and then I combine bio, meaning life, with theism, right. And then that's how I came up with the word biotheism.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's how I came up.
My friend would have a conniption if he found out. He spent like the last 10 years working on this. He has his own. He's developed. He inspired me a great deal. You see, we were working together to try and create a pantheist community here in Los Angeles here. And but we've kind of parted ways. I mean, we're still friends, but he has developed this system that has new terminology, is trying to develop rituals, is trying to change the whole structure of it. Basically, it's pantheistically based, but it involves activism. It involves sort of drawing the best from all of the world's ancient cultures and ancient mystical traditions. I'm much more of a I'm closer to like a Christopher Hitchens, Sam Harris, Richard Dawkins kind of guy. Like I love all those guys, and Neil deGrasse Tyson and Bill Nye and Richard Carrier, Robert Price. I'm not sure if you know these guys, but they're mythicists. And
guys, let me focus us in on something more fundamental, because like basically, what are we doing? We're trying to understand the nature of reality.
Sure.
If we talk about politics and society, why? To create a better society, which really translates to greater pleasure, less pain. That's our biology.
Sure. Minimizing.
Right? So hold on. Let me finish. So the idea is like all we're talking about is part of this, solution to pain, to like, the idea of increasing pleasure more and more. Now, what we're doing is useful. Overcoming free will belief is useful. Overcoming theism is useful. But when we consider that we are biological beings, that we have a neurobiology, I mean, don't you think it would be very intelligent? In other words, don't you think it might be humanity's foremost task as a species to overcome, this pain, and to not just that, but to create human beings, or to create the capacity within human beings to experience bliss biophysiologically? In other words, I'm talking about whether it's like a bliss pill, some kind of a happiness pill, because like think about it. What we're talking about, yes, the world has many, many problems, and a lot of them stem from our misunderstanding of reality. Hold on, Lissy. So like, and so what we're doing is useful, but would we agree that since we're biophysiological and since we seek pleasure, avoid pain, we're hedonic creatures, that, in terms of efficiency, in terms of focus, all we have to do is really like find this mechanism to basically block or eliminate this pain messaging system, replace it with something that's not painful, and all of a sudden, all this stuff is great. But then humanity, our human species, and perhaps the rest of the animal kingdom can be where we as living beings really want to be.
Okay, you brought up a lot there. There's a lot of issues there. There's a lot of thoughts and themes. What you're talking about is equilibrium, like the Christian Bale film where they take the drug and it's in the future and they don't have emotions anymore, and they don't have the extreme range of emotions anymore. But then it becomes kind of a fascist, sort of neo-Nazi kind of culture, and then there's the rebels who want.
Well, I'm not talking about that.
No, I'm saying it can be misconstrued like that. We don't want to eliminate pain in a sense like that. Pain. A certain level, we don't want to eliminate pain because pain is useful. Pain lets us know that we're in danger, that our physical body, is being threatened. What we want to do is create more homostasis. We want to create more balance, so there's less stratification and disparity between the extreme pain and pleasure, because that's what we have. We have people who are dosing up, heroin junkies who just want to escape and feel all the pleasure all the time, and they literally let their lives go. And everything goes to shit. And then you have other people who are just struggling and suffering and are in constant pain. So it's these extremes that we're trying to avoid. A huge part of my philosophy is balance. It's all about balance. We need to remember and do everything that we do needs to be ordered and structured based on this idea of balance and homostasis. This is one of the characteristics, qualities of life, is that a living organism within its own body, it creates a certain level of homostasis so that everything is in balance and working together. That's what you're really talking about.
No. For example, with pain, right? Pain is a messenger. It basically, we put our hand on a hot surface. Pain tells us to remove our hand so we don't.
George, you realize that this is exactly what we've been doing. This is pain, pain medication. The blockers, the anesthetics. We've developed all this stuff, and this is what we've done. this is what we do when people go under surgery and whatever, and this is what we do in a destructive way when we drink and consume, whatever it is, hallucinogens, drugs, and alcohol and stuff. So we're doing that, but you're saying that like that is getting rid of pain itself would be beneficial to our evolution, so that there's not these extreme reactions in response to it. Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, because like you got to realize fundamentally, we human beings seek pleasure and avoid pain. That's what all organisms do. So not only should we be working on more sophisticated pain blocking, mechanisms, but we should also be working on safe, effective mechanisms to just raise our happiness level from where it is now to 10 times higher. So yes, the world may still have various problems, right? But if people are incredibly happy, what more can we ask for?
So let's what do you advocate? I mean, we want to put THC in the water. What do you want to do?
Everybody.
THC. We're doing it. We're working towards it. I mean, how many states now have legalized marijuana? So everybody's high and stoned. We're going to be a lot happier. We might
exactly. It's euphoric. It's a euphoric,
hasn't legalized yet.
We can develop even more effective agents than THC, because THC, it's great, it's a euphoric, but imagine that times 10 or 100.
I would say ecstasy. If we're gonna go all out, let's get everybody on E, and we're all gonna be we're gonna be like the bonobos, just having sex. Just everybody's gonna be screwing everybody, and then we have the overpopulation problem again. So.
Well, again, and the other thing is that these things, the way I envision it is we create something like this, and let's say a generation or two take it, right? And then through that experience of 10, 100 times more happiness, then they create a world sociologically, through education, government, all the institutions that will mirror or just perpetuate that higher consciousness.
I believe it's an aspect, to be sure. It's definitely an aspect, alleviating the pain, and doing it in healthy, holistic ways where we don't become addicted to it, because since we are, like you said, pleasure seeking and pathway of least resistance, there are if we have scores of people who have these addictive personalities and who are unbalanced and unstable, emotionally unstable, they will take advantage of that, and obviously it's not going to be productive.
And I agree with you. It has to be safe, and it can't have these long-lasting side effects. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I mean, what we're talking about on the greater scope and scale of things is we're talking about cooperation and moving toward, a more sustainable society, a more sane society that actually functions and operates the way a body. See, I relate everything to biology, because I mean, life is the most important. I mean, that's all that really matters. So I relate everything to human body, physical organisms. Exactly what you would try to do in your body when you're sick, when things are out of control, when you have cancer cells that are totally dominating and they don't realize that they're part of a greater system. I mean, that's exactly what ideologies and religions and certain destructive belief systems are, certain destructive mindsets. That's what the same thing happens. So that you have to either cut them out, get rid of them, kill them, or they have to recognize that they're part of a greater system, and that literally it doesn't even matter if you don't like the person next to you, if you have racial inclinations, you have to recognize that they bleed red too, and that what you do affects them and what they do affects you. And once you recognize and really understand that we're in an interconnected system, then it eliminates this, because you don't get pissed off at your finger or your hand for not working right and start punching and smashing your own fingers. One part of your body doesn't attack another part. Sometimes it does. You have autoimmune what do you call it? Autoimmune intoxication, where it gets confused and it doesn't recognize. What's that? Yeah.
Syndrome. Yeah.
That happens occasionally because it's not a perfect system. But essentially your whole body works. I mean, for most healthy people, generally healthy, we don't even realize what beautiful syncretism is happening at all times. in our brains and our muscle tissue and our digestive system and our skeletal system. Everything is working together, and that order and that structure and that harmony was pre-existent. It came way before humans and primates ever evolved. It existed, and it exists in nature because it is a fundamental aspect of nature. The fundamental property of life is homeostasis. So we need to strive and work towards that, towards a biocentric attitude of homeostasis.
Let me suggest a fast track to that, because essentially what you're saying is like the better we understand ourselves, our interconnectedness and all, the better we're going to be, or better, another way of saying it, the more morally we're going to act, the more ethical we're going to become, the more we're going to do the right thing instead of the wrong thing. So again, like now, have you explored the idea that our conscience, that aspect of our mind that is good at understanding right from wrong, that can be strengthened biochemically, so like it's not just about boosting mood, it's boosting our ability to distinguish right from wrong.
I only caught the first part of that because I was typing something, but you're saying that what's most important is ethics and morality? Is that what you're saying?
Basically what all we're talking about, like in terms of, identifying our interconnectedness, that we're one and all. Why do we want to do this? We want to do this so we will behave better, so we'll be better to each other, to ourselves. So what I'm suggesting... So what I'm suggesting is a way to fast track that, in the sense that, like, basically we could work on developing a biochemical boost for our conscience, this aspect of our mind, of our brain, that's involved in distinguishing right from wrong. So fine, the ideology, the understanding, the philosophy, getting, that we don't have free will, all that stuff is good. But if we can like boost our ability to do the right thing, this aspect of our mind that we refer to as conscience, that's a way to fast track all this, to go directly to the source of what we really need.
What if that remedy was actually a greater awareness of the interconnectedness? What if it is actually what we would call, religious naturalism, the deep understanding, the awe-inspiring sort of human response to the beauty and complexity of the cosmos. And what I'm trying to say is, what if the religious experience itself becomes the drug, but in this case, it's not based on fantasy and delusion, it's based on scientific biological reality? What if we teach and promote science and reality and show people how miraculous and incredible and extraordinary this whole system is, this whole experience of life really is, so that people are literally getting high on life itself? I know it sounds campy, but
what you were suggesting is like a moral enlightenment. I mean, there's people like the Buddha, like Gandhi, like these religious figures that apparently, in the recognition of right and wrong and all, they far exceeded everyone else, or most people, right? So I think I gotta say that with I agree with you. I think like if we can do this Buddha, naturalistically, that'd be great. I gotta say with the Buddha, though, I gotta say that was very specific. I mean, obviously his life story is an archetype, as well. So we don't know how much is legend, how much is fact, and how much is fiction. But like what he was focused on was minimizing suffering by annihilating our desires, like because he put it together and said, if you don't desire anything, you're not going to be disappointed. So get rid of your desires and you have peace and equanimity. And I don't necessarily agree with that. I agree with many tenets of Buddhism, but what I'm trying to say is our desires are there for a reason. They direct us, they guide us. Our passions, our instincts, all these things are there for a reason, and they should work together in harmony. They should work in a I agree with you. I run happiness meetup groups, 4 here in White Plains, 1 in Manhattan. And for years I was teaching like, yes, let's minimize our desires, and go. But then what I realized, and this was just maybe several months ago, was that it's not wanting and the desires that causes us to suffer. It's our mistaken conclusion that when we don't get what we want, when things are not the way we want, the appropriate, logical, helpful, necessary response is for us to suffer. In other words, like, we need to learn that we can be really, really happy, that we don't have to suffer when we don't get what we want. So you're right. We can want
it's
things.
about having a greater perspective. It's about having a larger, seeing the big picture and understanding that, like, you know, you might not be getting what you want because maybe you're not ready for what you want. Maybe you'll fuck it up. If you get what you want, maybe you'll screw up everything, and then you'll suffer more. So it's about maturity. It's really like the evolution of our species, just growing up and recognizing, you know, that, like, we're not in control of everything, but we have incredible power and influence, and we can accomplish, you know, great, you know, amazing things if we can tap into our divine potential within. And the divine potential, don't get caught up when I say divine. I mean, you're a pantheist, so I'm sure it doesn't bother you. But if I was speaking to an atheist, when I say divine, I mean, it has nothing to do with the supernatural world. It has nothing to do with, you know, ghosts and monsters and demons and angels and the religious concepts of the supernatural. When I say divine, I mean the supernal, the highest, greatest, you know, most magnificent thing that there is. Like, someone would say this chocolate cake is divine. You know, it's the most magnificent, most extraordinary, most impressive, most intelligent, most complex, most powerful thing that there is. And the only thing that you know, fulfills this criteria is nature. So nature, to me, is divine, and nature is within us. It's what allows me to heal when I get cut. It's what helps me get better. My white blood cells go to work, or you know, lets me know that I'm tired, and I sleep, and then I get rejuvenated, and my cells are restored. And this is divine. This is miraculous. But it's not supernatural. It's all naturalistic. Like, my philosophy is a completely naturalistic philosophy that is just a deeper awareness of the extraordinary nature of existence itself, of reality, of the universe.
Dude, I am so high on life right now. Because life is amazing when you think about it. And, you know, this is kind of an interesting thing. Like, I've shared this with George before, but basically, I think of like the little cells as like little people that make up cities and countries, which make up our bodies,
exactly
basically.
What they are.
Yeah, I view them as the smaller parts that make up the whole, just as humans and other animals are part of larger communities, which are part of a planet, which is part of a galaxy, which is part of a solar system.
Biosphere, ecosystem. Yeah.
Yeah, so basically I'm able to, like, think about the infinitely big and the infinitely small, and I get kind of weird. Like, I have this moment when I start.
Look, you're not joking. I thought you were just, like, making a joke. Look, hey, check it out. He's actually experiencing what we were just talking about.
Yeah, like, well, that's interesting because I actually do have, like, some would call it a religious experience, but, like, I'm experiencing the monism, and it's a freaky thing, like, because I started looking at a few years ago. I would look at the ants that would crawl in our bathroom, which I don't want to kill, by the way. I have this thing, I don't want to kill ants. I don't even kill the spiders. Like,
I don't kill anything either, man. I'm a pantheist. I don't. Everything's divine. Everything's beautiful.
Yeah, and
y'all are better than I. Y'all are better than I am.
Yeah. See, here's the deal. Like
any insect, I don't care what it is.
Wow, man. You know what? Have you ever looked at an insect under a microscope? Have you ever looked at the compound eye of a fly, or the complex structure of an insect? They're so exquisitely designed. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, I've never been able to look under a microscope, but I've seen pictures, you know.
Yeah.
But, like, here's the deal. What I was saying, though, is that I have this experience because here's what it comes down to. Is that because, like, an ant is like the smallest thing that I can see without a microscope. I have this thing about ants where I watch their behavior. I watch as they communicate with each other. I watch as they eat food. I watch as they do all this stuff. And I realize that their behavior is exactly identical to the behavior of me and all the other humans. And when I see the oneness and the connection, and I start seeing myself as that ant, it sort of turns into a weird experience. And that's part of what forms
Chandler, what you're experiencing is pantheistic awareness. It's recognizing that literally, like, that ant is you and you are that ant. Like, not in a physical sense, but like, how do I use, in a qualitative sort of functional intrinsic way. Like, we're all doing the same thing. We're literally all doing the same thing, just at different levels of intelligence, different levels of evolution, different levels of awareness. We are all doing like the exact same thing. Yeah.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's very interesting because I have that sense of oneness, that we're all the same basic thing. And like, now a lot of humans are able to do it with other humans and see that they're the same as other humans, and some see it with larger mammals, but very few people actually go all the way to where they actually identify tiny insects, even little living cells.
Yeah, can I say something?
What?
Can I say something about that? Just me. I understand that it was like this, but when it comes to insects, it's just something about them that just creeps me out.
He's still hung up on it. He's picturing his mind. He's getting the creepy. He's getting the EBGBs right now.
Oh yeah, see, because a lot of
about
people are that way. Yeah, a lot of people are that way.
I've had so many tarantulas. I've had so many pets. I've taken so many spiders out of my house. I just catch them and let them go. You know, why kill when you can let live? You know.
Before I have insect.
I wanted to say something, Chandler, before I lose the train of thought, real quick. You said that life is so extraordinary and beautiful. I want to say something. Life, the experience of life, is not. It's actually full of horror and tragedy and turmoil and suffering and misery and violence, but it's also filled with beauty and intelligence and creativity and astonishing, complexity and experiences. It's both. It's actually like the yin and yang. That's life, the experience. Life, when you say life with the capital L, like what I would capitalize, I usually capitalize life, the universe, and nature. I always capitalize it because that is divine to me. When you say life itself, as in the life principle, as in life, the forces and powers, the laws of nature, the laws of physics, thermodynamics, electromagnetism, gravity, strong and weak nuclear force, entropy, all these different things, and life itself, the Mother Nature. We're talking about Mother Nature. When you think of, this is a personification, obviously. When you think of what Mother Nature is, that is extraordinary and beautiful, and it is absolutely progressive. It is absolutely moving towards greater and greater levels of awareness and compassion and like cohesive coexistence. And that's what's divine and what's beautiful. Now, during that whole process, there is all kinds of horrible shit. And I know more about history than most people. I've studied extensively, especially Christian history in the Dark
Ages.
Ages.
Ask you something?
So it's very difficult. And I expose myself to all kinds of things with the groups that I'm in, all kinds of animal cruelty and violence and atrocity. So I am very aware of how horrific it is. And it's difficult at times to not become pessimistic and despondent and nihilistic. But I have to balance it out because I know that there is both life and death and pain and beauty and goodness and evil, and it's all part of this gigantic experience. But this whole experience and the evolution of life itself is moving toward something that's beautiful and tremendous and it's bliss. That's what we're moving towards is we're moving towards heaven. That's what we're moving towards,
Yeah, and I know WSD wanted to say something, so I want to let him say something before.
Go for it.
Back to that bug thing. If you get bed bugs, would you not kill them?
Okay, I was about to. Okay, listen. This is important.
I was thinking that.
No, this is very important. It's a good point. It's a good issue. We used to have experiments. We used to have these sort of tests, like in our groups, on our early pantheist groups, and we'd say every day we need to come up with something that is undesirable, that is disgusting and gross, or generally something that we would not consider to be divine, and we need to name it, and then we need to talk about how it actually fulfills a purpose, and find the beauty in it, and find the intelligence in it, and show how it actually, and slugs, ticks, maggots, whatever it might be, and
what purpose does it have?
There's absolutely a purpose. Otherwise, it wouldn't exist. It functions. Listen, parasites. You're asking that question. I'm going to get to that. Okay, parasites, things that feed on us, bacteria. Obviously, what we have to first develop is a strong sense of a oneness and acceptance and reverence for the divine within us. We have to first love and accept our own divine principle, and then base everything else off of that, and recognize, the divine principle and everything else. So I would say, you're asking me, would I kill bed bugs if they're in my bed? Of course, because they are infesting, my living quarters, and they're threatening my biological life. If there's roaches, I actually really respect cockroaches, and I'm fascinated by them.
Like
and I
said,
study
you're
them.
better than I am.
If I find a roach in my house, either I'll take it outside, or if it's a little one, I have to kill it, because they spread disease, they grow, they multiply, you become infested. So we are at odds with the other aspects of nature. But as far as we're able, and we are able to a really great degree, to not kill and not harm and respect and honor life, then we should. So spiders aren't hurting me, and they're not poisonous. I'll take them outside. Any life form that I find that I can care for, take care of, or help along the way, I will, because I respect it, I honor it. Not because I'm this self-righteous person, but because I genuinely find life fascinating, and I study it and I respect it, and that's the point. So this is a kind of, I'm trying to summarize it here. If you come after me with a knife or hatchet, if you're threatening my life or my animals, or if you're threatening my family, I will hurt you in self-defense. I will defend myself to protect my body, my person. I will fight you and do whatever I have to do. Okay, but I will never kill or harm anything that I don't have to. So it's only out of necessity. You see what I'm trying to say? And this gets into
and I want a second one.
Vegetarianism and veganism, but I won't go there
still better
right
than
now.
I am.
Yeah, well, I want a second.
I just have a different awareness.
Like I said, roaches. I just get angry.
Yeah.
Look, man, if you got a parasite, if you got a tapeworm, take it out and kill it, because it's feeding on you. If there's a mosquito and it's drinking my blood, I'm gonna kill it because it's feeding on me. But I'm not. If I see a mosquito and it's not on me, I'm not gonna kill it. I don't kill flies. I just catch flies and I let them outside, because I see the life that's in them. I see that they are just another expression of nature, another expression of the divine. I don't
think I found that yet.
Yeah, well,
you're better than I am.
Yeah, well, what I want to say about that is, like, it's important to understand what Poffo is saying. Basically, is there a way of getting rid of something without killing it? And that's an important.
Damn bed bugs.
See, that's the important distinction there, is because
I wouldn't collect bed bugs and then relocate them. I would probably just kill bed bugs, because they are infringing on on our life and on the quality of our life. So that's why anything that's
What?
Yeah.
Here in Philly. Yeah.
In Philly.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say about
lice,
that.
Ticks, fleas. I'll kill fleas because they're feeding on my cat, and they're multiplying and stuff. But again, I respect fleas as well. If you looked at a flea under a microscope, they look like aliens. They're fascinating.
Yeah. Well, what I want to say about that, though, is it's a very interesting thing.
Their height, but yeah.
Yeah, but like there's an interesting case where there does obviously exist some times where it is a matter of either kill or be killed. And what it comes down to is there comes a situation where, whether it's another human or another animal or bed bug or cockroach or whatever it may be, where it's either you kill them or you end up getting killed or something like that.
If it's affecting your well-being, if it's affecting your experience, and I'm not talking about if it's harming you in some way. The idea is to do no harm, and there are other aspects of nature that will feed on us, and this is a very important point, actually, that a lot of atheists, and I would even say they're like more cosmocists, like in Lovecraft's sort of mythos, the way he viewed that the universe is. Everything is out to kill you. Nature is cruel, and essentially the universe, nature is indifferent. There is no God. He was an atheist, So I take the opposite position, that like not everything is out to kill you. Everything is out to live. Every cockroach and spider and ant and flea and whatever vermin or pest that you might despise is just trying to exist and live and fulfill its own prime directive to reproduce, to feed itself. You understand? Once you understand that, like there's compassion. It creates a level of compassion where there's no need, unless there is a need, then you don't inflict harm. Like every single organism, whether it's bacteria, cancer cells, like parasites. I'm trying to think of the worst thing I could think of. I guess would be a parasite. It's just trying to exist. It's trying to live. It's doing exactly what it's been programmed to do. Getting back to the free will, I guess it has no choice. It is just doing exactly what nature wants to do, and nature just wants to live. Nature, if you could personify it and ask it a question, what do you want? It would just say, I just want to live for as long as possible and in the most efficient way possible, and I want to reproduce and keep reproducing. And during that process, what ends up happening? It ends up becoming more and more and more intelligent, more and more self-aware, more and more cognitive and just aware of its own existence within the whole. So everything wants to live. So let things live, unless they are threatening your life. Then you absolutely have the right to defend yourself. You only harm
Poffo, I want to segue to free will for a minute.
Sure.
If you're familiar with some of my shows, I start out with this John Searle quote that for our world to accept that free will is an illusion would be a, quote, bigger revolution in human thought than Einstein or Copernicus or Galileo or Newton or Darwin, and that it would alter our whole conception of our relation to reality. What's your take on that assessment? Do you believe that transcending free will is that major of a step in our evolution as a species?
How can I say this? Well, what you said right there, that intro was profound. It's very, very passionate and profound. I personally don't hold it up in such high significance, except in terms, if you're talking about dispelling the indoctrination and the myths, of Christendom, like fundamentalist Christianity saying, oh, that's why there's evil, because we have free will and we chose to eat the fruit and stuff like that. So unless you're trying to debunk that concept, I don't really understand the significance at all. And I actually don't get into free will debates in my groups, because I say we make choices, but those choices are influenced. So that's it. So how is the idea of letting go of free will, how would it be so significant and powerful, unless we're talking about within the religious context?
Okay, I think most essentially in our human experience, and this really has to do more with society than religion, basically without the belief in free will, we could not logically, punitively blame anyone or ourselves for anything. Think about that. That in my mind would create so much compassion. There would be no logical, rational reason that we could use to blame someone, and as a result of that blame, want them harmed, want them punished, I see it to ourselves.
I can see it now. I understand the significance now, and I can see your perspective on it. I guess it would tie in with, in a parallel sense, it would tie in with our acceptance as a biopantheist, my acceptance of the fact that I'm an animal. Okay, so that I would not. Is the antithesis of what religions teach, but I am not this dirty, filthy, disgusting creature in need of salvation. I'm a sinner from birth. I am an animal, and I'm doing exactly what my body is influencing me to do. And so I can love and accept myself, and I can love and accept every other animal and life form, just like the whole conversation we were just having about insects and pests and vermin and stuff. That, like, once you acknowledge and understand that everything is just acting according to its own nature, that it will eliminate that intense, vehement hate and distrust and discord between people, because we understand that we're operating based on our own biology. Yeah, so I can relate to that. I also can see on the other end that how this could be taken advantage of, and you could say, okay, I have no free will, so whatever I do, I'm going to kick this dog. I'm going to beat the shit out of this kid. I'm going to rape this girl. I'm just doing, what I feel like doing.
I ain't gonna and I
have you can't blame me, the individual, the person. I mean, I'm playing devil's advocate, saying this is what people would say. You can't blame me, the individual, because I'm just acting in accordance with my own nature. So I have no responsibility in this. But that's not the case. Obviously, we're not autonomic beings that are just functioning, robotically without the discretion, without reasoning, without thinking, without weighing things out. We're trying to make the best decision. We have, an intellectual capacity to try and make good choices based on all available evidence, based on our influence, our needs, our desires. So it's more complex than that. So it goes back to, I say, we can make choices. We can make good choices. We can make bad choices. We have the ability to make choices. It's got to be in balance. But I could see how someone else would say, spread that philosophy, that ideology, and you're just going to have people completely condoning their irresponsible and maladjusted behavior.
Yeah, our response to that challenge.
I'm sure you've heard that argument.
Yeah, no, sure. And so one way we respond is like we point to our medical model. In other words, like there are people who we define as sociopaths or psychopaths. And very often something's wrong with their brain, right? So we recognize that they're dangerous. We recognize that they have to be addressed and sometimes like held or whatever, but we don't do it from the perspective of blame. So it's more compassion, or at least it should be. So basically it's applying the medical model of psychopathy and whatever to everyone.
Right. Oh, okay. So hold on. So this is interesting. Well, I mean, first of all, that's been taken advantage of. Obviously, the insanity plea. We plea. The devil made me do it. I was crazy. I wasn't thinking straight. So, there's that. But then you're saying that he's laughing. You're saying that on a biological level, we really aren't responsible. So we should address the actual influence. I mean, this goes back to structural violence, that it's not the individual necessarily, it's the environment that they're in. It's what's been created. It's the paradigms and what's been set up that's made the monster. No one's born a monster. A child suffers trauma.
The way we explain it, in other words, like our world needs order, needs rules and laws, and so the idea is like, we enforce this morality to as much as we have to with our rules and laws, not because people have a free will, but because we are biologically hardwired to respond to reward and punishment.
It's fascinating. Hang on. I got to do something real quick, but I'll respond as soon as I get back. Give somebody else a chance to talk, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And this is so interesting, guys. This is like extremely interesting, the most interesting conversation I've had in months. And here's what I wanted to say, is that like George and I, like the other co-hosts, like who talk about free will, like we believe that giving up this illusion of free will helps eliminate the division and the inequality, and basically helps us have like that pantheist type of experience with the monism, where we realize all is one, everything is one, and others and ourselves are kind of the same thing. When we just see ourselves as the result of prior causes, and even what we're doing is by prior causes, then we are without the blame. We don't blame anyone, so there's no hostility, no revenge. And so there's so many benefits, and so I agree like with John Searles in his quote that it is the biggest revolution ever. And I think what follows from that revolution is that it leads into like this monism, pantheistic type thought where we're all one and we're all in the same boat, or we're all in this shit together, sort of, we're all on the same side rather than opposing each other.
I caught the tail end of that. You don't have to repeat anything, but I think I'm gathering the gist of it. I just feel like I would take a different approach, in that I feel like teaching biology, teaching people what actually exists, whether it's in nature, in the cosmology, what exists biologically, what exists in terms of the laws of physics, what exists in terms of psychology. What's that?
Oh shit, my bad. I thought I muted.
What exists? Teach people reality, raise awareness, and educate people in terms of what actually exists psychologically, what's going on inside people's minds, what causes the real causes for events, instead of attributing natural phenomenon to superstition and religious ideologies and religious mythology. Like, actually teach science, teach reality. I don't think people have enough of a handle, of a grip, of a even one inkling of an understanding of how extraordinary reality actually is in terms of biological life, in terms of the laws of nature, things like that. Teach that, and it will raise awareness, and it will instigate and influence and inspire evolution in terms of morality. Ethics and morality will develop, because we are social creatures. We are a social species. We're primates, and we had to get along and work together in order to exist. And it's in our nature. It didn't come from a fucking book. It didn't come from from some transcendent being that told us what was right and wrong. It's innate. It's in us. It came from cause and effect. It came from consequences of experiences. You rape and murder and steal. Well, you're not going to get along with the rest of your tribe. I mean, you're going to get banished.
Basically explaining that morality isn't even a human invention. It's basically just a name we give to what
innate.
works. Yeah.
Right. And we agree with what you're saying. In other words, like in a certain sense, for example, we have climate change, right? And this is science, right? But, since most of us aren't climate scientists or hard scientists, we have to take their word for it. And so much of science is like this. Now, this free will issue, it's like the basic, we human beings, because of this free will myth, have the fundamental nature of human behavior completely wrong, right? So now, as opposed to climate change and other sciences that are very complex and beyond the scope of most people, this is an area whereby by showing people exactly why we don't have a free will, we can teach them to think more clearly and more strongly, because this is about logic. It's not about ideology or about like things that people can't understand through their own rational processes. And you're right, it's about explaining the fundamental, in other words, what is the fundamental basis of scientific method? Same cause, same effect. So it's basically teaching science at the most fundamental level.
Experiment.
Right.
Related to this
repeatable
issue of free will.
experiments. Yeah, empirical evidence, repeatable, experiments like observation, hypothesis, and then you test it, and then it's observed, and then you record it, and then if it can be repeated, then we know that it's an established, immutable fact. If there's evidence, if there's sufficient evidence.
But do you see that the idea is, like, for example, with a lot of science, we learn it and it's an article of faith. We have faith in our physicists. They know what they're telling us.
Yeah, certain things. Right. I can't see the beginning of the universe that it was actually 13.8 billion years. I'm taking his word for it.
Exactly. But with this free will illusion, overcoming it is something that, generally speaking, anyone without any scientific literacy or anything can understand through pure logic.
But I'm still confused in that, like, how many people, honestly, in a general sense of the population, even question this, or how often does this come into play? The idea that they have free will. How often does that how influential is that? So that if you take it away, you feel like it's going to be create a significant change.
There's about 2 to 3 billion people on the planet who don't have access to safe water, don't have these basic resources. They're extremely poor, right? Now, many people, the conservatives mainly, will refuse to help them because they'll say, well, of their free will, they're lazy, they're just like, they're not working, so we're not going to reward that. Hold on, SD. They're not doing what they should. So in other words, they deserve to suffer. We don't have to help them because of their free will, they made their own, better, whatever. They're doing it to themselves. So in other words, like, that's one area where politicians refuse to help people that really need help, and the other area is like,
I was gonna say that's just a disgusting apathetic attitude that they have, and I think that's just what they're saying, and they're saying it so that they don't have to help unless there's oil and resources there that they want, and then we're all like humanitarians and we'll go in there and give them new government and play like we're good Samaritans.
The other part is, like, for example, like you get a young kid in an inner city that gets into trouble, right? And they'll say, well, his friend down the block didn't get into trouble, so we're going to throw the book at this guy because, like, with this free will, he did this and that and that, right? So, like, to the extent we evolve beyond this myth of free will, we recognize that kid who got into trouble because our society failed that kid. In other words,
I've heard the exact same, even the same wording. When it comes to homeless people, why they're homeless, you could say, well, he chose that lifestyle, or he made bad decisions, and then someone else will say, no, we failed him, society failed him, and it's our fault. I see a lot of problems with it, not in theory. I'm saying in a reactionary sense, where people would say, you're just let's say that the kid in school is not responsible. Oh, he's just going to blame. Everything he does, he's going to blame on his environment and his upbringing. That, well, I was abused, growing up. I suffered this, I suffered that, so that's why I'm doing this. Well, yeah, that is why you're doing it. But there comes a time where you have to take responsibility. Where if you have the capacity to demonstrate moral and ethical behavior, then it is your responsibility to do so. If you live in a society, where you're dependent upon other people and other people are, being affected by you. So that there is a personal responsibility there, but I understand that we need to look at the root causes. See, I would just use different language myself. I would just say what we need to do is look at the root causes. We need to look at why this person is this way and get to the core of what events transpired that led up to this incident, and not just keep trying to treat the symptoms and just punishing and jailing people who end up serving their time, are completely not rehabilitated. They go right back out and do commit the same crimes again, because there is no, they're not attacking the actual cause. They're just
right.
That's it exactly.
Yeah, I agree with
you
both
want to say
of you
something?
guys. Yeah, I agree with both of you guys fully, and here's why your two views are completely compatible. Because here's the deal, is that free will belief is what prevents people from looking at those root causes, because they cannot believe there are root causes, because they believe each person is causa sui, the cause of themselves, meaning they think
I see it.
That's exactly it. So they're not going to look at the root causes and the nature and nurture, the environment, the system that made a person do something that they consider wrong or immoral. They're not going to look at that because they believe in free will. And that is why I agree with John Searle and George that it is the biggest revolution ever. And Poffo, it directly leads people to do what you're talking about. So there's no conflict at all. They're totally compatible.
Looking at things from a systems perspective, from a holistic, from a larger perspective. That's the idea that different events, different causes, different things. Jacques Fresco is big on this. He talks about this a lot, actually. What I was going to say was, I just don't think that people themselves are thinking in that way. You're saying it's a fundamental sort of indoctrination, or it's a sort of a fundamental mentality that exists kind of unconsciously, that people that's the way we've been kind of conditioned to think. So you dispel that and then it will change. That's what you're saying.
Yeah, like take a married couple. Okay, here in the United States, the divorce rate is like 50% for first marriages. A lot of times these couples, they get into an argument about money, but whatever it is, right? And because they're busy blaming each other and defending themselves against blame, they're distracted from, together as a team, addressing what's actually affecting them both.
Whoa. I just thought, is this process theology? Because I've seen videos that talk about this and get into, the real root causes. There's always, maybe I'm confusing it with Scientology or something. There was like talking about that there's always more than one person that's actually doing the cheating in a psychological sort of
this goes way beyond this. In other words,
domino
say, all right,
effect. Butterfly.
the wife is accusing the husband of cheating, right? The husband is accusing the wife of being cold or something, right? That's the free will perspective. As we evolve beyond it, they're both trying to figure out how the universe, God, whatever you want to call it, is causing the husband to cheat and causing the wife to appear cold and stuff. And together they're on the same side of this. They're no longer at each other. They're recognizing that neither of them are in any fundamental way to blame for any of it.
Well, okay, so that would go back to my point of saying, recognize that fundamentally, if I'm speaking allegorically and metaphor, in terms of a metaphor, recognize that fundamentally we are all one body. So everything that everyone does affects everything else, and we're all interconnected. And quantum mechanics tells us this on a subatomic level, and biologically. And Neil deGrasse Tyson says that we're all connected to each other, chemically, to the earth, biologically, to the to the rest of the universe atomically. So that's just teaching science. Teach people science, and then you'll recognize it. I guess it might seem a stretch to you to make those connections, but to me it all goes back to biology.
Yeah, well, I basically say that these are all different sides of the same object, basically, because essentially any understanding of science and reality, nature, whatever you call it, is understanding determinism, is understanding that we're not some freely willing, choosing, separate self. So it's all like the same thing, and which direction you start from doesn't make really a difference. It's a drawing, it's a painting or a drawing. Which thing you draw first in the picture doesn't actually make much of a difference, because it's all part of one whole picture.
Right. It's an amalgamation. Yeah, in terms of teaching, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, in terms of teaching science, I mean, ordinarily the debate is framed free will versus determinism. But determinism, to a great extent, is about prediction, right? But really what refutes free will isn't determinism so much as cause and effect, right? So from this debate about free will versus cause and effect, causality, we can understand that what causes everything that happens at the present moment is the state of the universe at the previous moment. What caused that is the state of the moment of the. So basically it's the evolution of the universe moment by moment. So basically we're teaching how causality is the fundamental process of change in the universe.
Right, it's Newton's law. I mean, to every action there's an equal and opposite reaction, and it keeps taking it back and back and back and back further and further. But in pantheistic terms, it's the underlying divine principle or the life principle that is pushing and pulling and moving everything towards this greater symbiosis. Toward everything is operating based on these prime directives, which is what pushes and pulls life from behind and from ahead. I believe what initiated everything and what we're moving towards. And the underlying principle is, towards greater levels of self-awareness and self-organization. And throughout that process, you have all these challenges and, all these sort of differentials through because we're all subjective forms. We are the universe perceiving itself in subjective form from all these different positions juxtaposed, thinking that we're all separate and individual. And this gets really into non-duality, the idea of non-duality. A lot of friends of mine are big on that, and they're all about pushing that non-duality, that we're all one thing. We need to think in monistic terms. And I say that's true. That's absolutely true fundamentally. But we also live in a dialectical. There's a dichotomy. There is distinction in our experience. So you're over there, I'm over here. Left hand, right hand, up, down. Hot, cold. These distinctions exist, so we have to deal with them. But we can look at everything in a holistic sense and see everything as one divine whole.
Yeah.
So
hey guys,
I agree with you, and I just
wanted to say that I was actually supposed to already be in bed, but I didn't want to cut it short because this is just so interesting. But I'm sure you can probably join us for more future episodes, because it seems like we all have a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, if you'll have me, and if you think it was productive and positive. The last thing I was going to say, we're actually enacting, exactly what we're talking about right now, that we're all doing this, for similar purposes, whether it's define fellowship or to express our ideas, or I think genuinely on a fundamental level, George and Chandler and everybody, we want to see, we want the world to be a better place. We want things to get better. We care about the welfare of humanity and of life, and so we're generally moving towards the same goal, and we have the same agenda, so to speak. So we're just different parts of the same body wanting homostasis. We're just wanting to literally love and accept ourselves, and just different aspects of ourselves, and that's what we're working towards. And
we all have the same goals.
Coming at it from different perspectives, and like what you're saying with your model, we're coming at it from different perspectives because we all have different experiences. If in my experience free will isn't necessarily hasn't come up as much, and it's more like some other issue like the disparity between the rich and the poor, or the major problems of religions, or whatever. If I think those are the major contributing factors, so I would come up with solutions that are relevant and specific to those subjects and themes. So we're all coming at it from our own personal experiences, and it's all valuable.
Right, and the reason,
and
the benefit of us all coming together and talking about it is because how we see how these different issues that we face are all connected and all part of the same big picture. And so that's the thing about it. And so, I definitely will want to talk more about these things in the future. And I regret that Logan didn't really get to say anything, and Jamie and WSD haven't had much of a chance to say anything either.
I apologize. I'm not even aware of who's who yet, so I'm not really used to the.
Oh interface. If you keep joining us, you'll become familiar with all of us. We've been doing this quite a while. We're great friends and all, and so so I really need to end this episode. But this will basically be a very long and personal opinion, I guess. But it's just important for our audience to know that the whole free will issue we've covered on the Free Will Science Religion podcast in like 175 episodes so far. So people can listen to all of our stuff free. And so I'm sure that Poffo will want to join us for many more sessions. We're recording on Sundays typically. So
okay.
Yeah, so was there one more thing anyone else needed to say before we end this call and end the recording and all that?
Yeah, no, Poffo, I'm just really impressed with your insight, your logic, and your breadth of knowledge. So I hope you join us, whether to better explain this free will thing or just the idea of just creating a better society that works much better for everyone.
Absolutely. I appreciate that, sir. Thank you. And thanks for the opportunity to talk about my philosophy and, engage with you guys. It's nice. It's nice. I mean, I do this all the time through my Facebook groups, but I don't do it as often, on video chats and like this, through Skype.
Yeah. So I agree. This has been very enlightening. You're a smart dude. So, So I'll do the outro.
I spent a lot of time on it. I mean, it's if you lived my life, if you had the same experiences as me, if you were exposed to the same information that I've been exposed to, then you would think very similarly, and you'd have the same the same skill set or whatever. So hey, look, I'm not saying I'm smart because I have no free will. I'm a product of my experiences, of my environment.
Exactly.
A lot of intelligence is being channeled through you.
Yeah, basically, we understand that nobody owns the intelligence, and that we are a product of our experiences. That's exactly right, and you'd be me if you'd had my experiences in genetics and all that.
Right.
So George Ortega, so ones and zeros are actually going for us from the universe, right?
Yeah, binary code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't even know he was still here. What's your name? Do like a roll call so I know everybody's name.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah. I'm Chandler Klebs, and Jamie is our friend from the UK that just talked, and then WSD is the guy who doesn't like insects.
He hates big bugs.
And Donald Trump.
And Donald Trump. Well, we can all agree on that. Yeah, we can all agree on that. I just went to. Me too. He is a bug. He's a parasite. I just went to Wacko, and they have the big statue of him there. Like the naked statue.
I haven't
There's
seen
a
those yet.
bookstore. It's pretty awful, but it's funny. People just come up, take pictures of it. He's got this itty bitty little penis, and he just looks awful. He looks like a giant grub, like a big slug or something, with like veins all over it. But,
well, seriously, guys, I need to end this because I was supposed to be in bed already. So I'm just gonna do the outro and then end the call, and then I back up the recording before I go to bed. Okay.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Thanks.
All right.
Al. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thanks, Poffo.
You've been listening to the Impersonal Opinion podcast, and we've also been talking heavily about the free will topic, which we usually cover in our other podcast. But it was all one conversation, so anyone who has the patience to listen to this whole thing can. And so thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed, and goodbye.